When I originally watched Violet Evergarden, the last two episodes really rubbed me the wrong way. "This isn't an action show," I screamed indignantly as Violet manhandled Garteric soldiers on top of a train. I was irritated by the setup of some grave danger and the unrealistic jump to defusing a bomb and saving the day that seemed extremely out of place to me. Sure, we've seen brutal action earlier in the show, but it was in the context of war flashbacks that helped to illuminate Violet's past as well as her relationship to Major Gilbert. I could even buy Violet paradropping into Catrigal to help write a letter, because it was a short sequence and the emotional payoff with the soldier storyline was very much worth it. However, the train sequence just seemed plain wrong in a show that had for 10 episodes been a slow burn character drama. I was annoyed at Violet for not killing people who were obviously trying to kill her and everyone else on the train. Having loved the series from episode 1, I still regarded it as one of, if not the favorite anime of all time, but was torn on the climax being forced and out of place. Recently, I decided to do a second watch-through, something I had been saving because I wanted enough time in between to make it more meaningful. My second watch-through, while less wondrous and adventurous, was more focused and engaged. Since I knew what was going to happen with the story, I was able to focus on the dialogue, scenery, sound design, and the writing and pacing of individual episodes more. And I can't explain enough to you how deeply, deeply beautiful this anime is in every way. The care that went into every detail is honestly just incredible. I'm blown away every time I see the vibrant aesthetic or hear Evan Call's heart-wrenching soundtrack. I'm gushing, I know. And then we got to the train scenes. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it all. Up until that point, I had just fallen in love with everything all over again, and probably even more as I absorbed everything I had missed before. I saw these scenes as something the writers desperately needed to up the ante to make a bigger climax, much akin to Darling in the Franxx, R.I.P., and didn't want this forced action sequence to ruin this beautiful show. Then, all of a sudden, it didn't. I was totally fine with it. In fact, I think the show benefits from it, and here's why. There's actually two climaxes that bring a satisfying ending to the story. One, the climax of defeating the pro-war Garteric faction and finally allowing an official peace to be attained. However, we see a second climax that occurs with Violet as a character herself. Violet Evergarden is not a war story. In fact, when it does portray war, the brutality and its after-effects are portrayed extremely negatively. It is, in every sense, a post-war story. The world economy and geopolitical landscape is struggling to regain a sense of normalcy in a post-war world. Even with an armistice signed, tensions still remain high. The displacement of populations, towns bombed, and civilians killed all contribute to an unrest led by pro-war factions within each country. Just as Leidenschaftlich and the Garteric Empire struggle to rebuild after the war, our characters also struggle to adjust and create an identity for themselves in a changing political and social environment. The veterans deal with and struggle to come to terms with the burns they've received from the war. Luculia's brother, Dietfried, Claudia, the Garteric survivors, and finally Violet all struggle with the things they were forced to do and to go through. Taking another person's life is a heavy act, but an act that only weighs heavily on Violet after she's been given the chance to live with, connect with, and help other people. Violet learns empathy, learns the stories of these people, all their faults, all their love, the good and the bad. It's only through learning what life truly is that she begins to understand the weight of taking it away from someone. This is why she refuses to kill anyone. This is why she was risking harm to herself in order to avoid killing the Garteric rebels, and even actively save them from falling off the train. She has been given the chance to live and learn from people, and now can never bring herself to take that chance away from someone else. Violet is burning. For all that time, she just didn't understand what it was. All her life, she was a victim of war. At first taken from her home and trained by force to be a weapon, then losing the one person who cared for her and whom she lived for. After all of this, as she learned how to feel and regained her sense of humanity, she had to watch the people around her be affected by the war that she had a very active part in. This is the perfect setup for her final realization, a final trial by fire of everything that she's learned up to this point. Faced with cruelty and the possibility of death, she still clings to her newfound faith in humanity, refusing to extinguish life that finally has meaning to her. In the end, Violet survives and saves the day. Cliché in its execution? Yeah. But the emotional weight of the moral of the story and Violet staying true to her identity outweighs the train-jumping, bomb-defusing action. In addition to this, she is given the chance to make amends for the death and violence she caused during the war by actively preventing the peace talks from breaking down. Violet has found herself. She's able to live in a world that had been cruel to her, and she's able to forgive the people who were cruel to her. Through this, Dietfried comes to understand her and no longer resents her for the loss of his brother. She no longer needs orders from anyone. As an Automemories doll, she writes letters that bring people together. And through her trials, she finally understands what the words, "I love you," mean. If you haven't watched Violet Evergarden yet, I would highly recommend it to anyone who enjoys weighty, emotional stories. I realize that it's not for everyone by any means, and that it has quite a few faults, but I would be remiss if I didn't praise it for all the things it does right, or if I understated how much meaning this show holds for me. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, the show, the light novel, or just hated everything, please leave a comment and let me know.